Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
That's why Amazon patented one-click checkout. Like back then, people are like, what? That's such a weird thing to patent, one-click checkout. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because the difference between one-click checkout and two-click checkout or three is significant. People drop
Yeah.
off. I think the nice thing about the short-term rental space, actually all of hospitality, we are all generally users as well. We're hosts, but we
Mhm.
stay with other hosts. We're GMs, but we stay at other hotels. And so we can see it from both sides. When things are just easy and frictionless, that's like the key. When things are not
Yeah.
easy, when something's challenging, even if people are going above and beyond, it still is just, oh, okay. And we're spoiled, unfortunately. But yeah, I could go on. But I think that there are a lot of parallels between e-commerce and hospitality. And a lot of it is just that like we're moving towards more digital world. And so how do you
Mhm.
represent products digitally? Right now, you really just do that through images and video and descriptions and reviews. And so that becomes really important no matter what you're selling.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Will Slickers. Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you are here and watching the live stream, or if you're just listening on the audio version, just know that this episode I interview Marc, who is a founder of Minoan. And in Minoan, this is a very fascinating conversation behind what goes into e-commerce, what is the shoppable experience for guests, how do hosts and property managers or even hotel GMs earn extra revenue in stay and post stay, and what is the e-commerce world compared to short-term rentals, hospitality as a whole. There's a couple things that Marc has stated in this episode that got me really excited, and I think if you go all the way through, give it a full listen, you'll enjoy this conversation, have plenty of takeaways. And the biggest thing for me as the host and creator of the show is not to interview founders for founders. I say this at the end of the episode that I'm not doing this to give a community of founders extra content and conversation points to talk about. I'm doing this because I personally relate to the stories of founders as I've created my own business, as I've been struggling or have struggled with mental health and self-awareness and all these personal traits growing up as a kid. I want this conversation to be applied to anybody, whether you are a hotel housekeeper, if you are a tech founder, if you are a salesperson, if you are a marketing expert, I don't care what your role or what industry you're in. This type of content and conversation for me is to give to anybody. I think it's applicable any way, shape, or form. So, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I really hope you enjoy. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Journey. If you haven't heard of Journey already, you need to go check them out, jurny.com, and go to the link in the show notes. Let them know that Will Slicker sent you. Click on the drop down menu that you heard this from a podcast or from Hospitality FM or Podcast Network, and just do a demo of their unified platform. I think if you are about tech and if you're about systems and operations and building out a really seamless structure for your company, then you need a demo with Journey. Get that done and let them know Will sent you. And if you do, you'll get up to 10 free smart locks for your property or properties, depending however many properties you need or have, then you will get those smart locks for your property if you just demo and sign up. So Check them out, jurny.com. And now back to the episode. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers. And today I'm joined by Marc, who is the founder of Minoan. And I'm excited for this episode because over the last, I would say month or so, I've gotten
Yeah.
to get to know Marc and his team. We met up in Nashville for the STR Wealth Conference, and just really been loving the creativity and just seeing the inside scoop of what's happening inside Minoan. So, Marc, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. And how are you doing?
Yeah, happy to be here. I'm doing well. Having a good
Yeah,
week, having a good day. So it's I'm up in northern Vermont and it's like perfect weather. There's nothing to complain about.
perfect. Well, I'm excited to jump in. I know you and I have talked about your story. You and I actually got to meet some time ago in 2021, which was a whole nother crazy time to
Yeah.
talk about, maybe for another podcast. But I want to hear kind of where everything started for you. Where's your career begin? Where does your journey, really start? Because I think a lot of the listeners from me to them, I want to tell not just stories of founders, but stories of people that are relatable, right? I think you have a really unique story, and you started off in a proper spot. You weren't just some guy who came up with an idea randomly and never, had any experience. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try and quickly zip through some stuff. My first job out of college was a BDR, which I didn't know what that meant. People in sales will know what that is, but a company called CEB. I was basically, glorified cold calling, trying to set up sales meetings, which I hated. But when you make like 200 dials a day and you catch an executive and you have like 10 seconds to make a pitch and try and get them to schedule a meeting, you develop some pretty good skills that I've carried with me. And so one thing I always tell people, it's not like sales is not glorious when you start out. It's a lot of rejection, but I think it like
Mm.
builds really strong foundational skills, particularly for folks who want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Um, while I was at CEB, I got a call from a friend who had just joined a company called Jet.com, which was a new e-commerce marketplace. I always loved startups and entrepreneurship, and I was really excited by the idea of joining this company that had a lot of money. Was I think when I joined, it was like 50 people. Um, yeah, so joined Jet. The company grew. So when I joined, it was 50 people. Within 2 months, it was like 200 people.
Jeez.
We launched like 5 months after I joined, and then 10 months after that, we were already doing $80 million a month in GMV. So it was a insane, like, hold on to your horses type of
Yeah.
company. Yeah, I learned a lot there, which I can talk about in a little bit. And then yeah, the founders of that business, Marc Lore being the founder, they sold the business to Walmart, I think August of 2016. And then I went over to Walmart as part of that acquisition. I took over a $400 million business in e-commerce, managing a section of sporting goods, basically.
Wow.
Um, Spent a lot of time optimizing experiences on websites in e-commerce. Spent a lot of time with the team in Bentonville, the stores, sort of brick and mortar side, working through like how to set the modular, basically thinking like what products go where on the aisles and the end caps. And yeah, that was sort of where I had the idea for Minoan. I was like, man, the best product experiences, like, they don't happen on screens
Mm.
and they don't happen on shelves and aisles the way they do in like a Target or Walmart or these stores. They happen in real moments of use. Um, yeah. And one of those ideas that like you think about it when you're in bed and then you're like, I can't go to sleep, and it's like you start writing stuff down in your phone. And yeah, after several months of that, I decided to take the leap and get it going.
I love it, and there's a lot to dive into, which we will. I promise. I wrote it down, but I always love to ask this question to founders who went to college. Do you feel like college was something that you thrived in, or was school just something that really, I don't know. I barely graduated high school. I always say I
Yeah.
just don't learn that in that type of setting. I'm very much hands-on, like, gotta do it, gotta figure out myself. What was that like for you?
I was a better student in college than I was in high school, which I think is rare. I think I'm a big believer in education. Do
Mhm.
I believe that that needs to be structured in like a university or a college? No. I mean, I'm like, dude, I read books with a notepad next to me and I
Mhm.
write stuff down. Like I'm reading a book called The Body by Bill Bryson right now, which is like
Mhm.
fascinating. Crazy. Our bodies are so complicated and incredible. It's like the most incredible technology, in the world is in us. And I'm
Did
on
you say
like
it's
I read like
by
20
Bill
pages of
Bryson?
Bill Bryson, who's a great author.
Bryson.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so I'm still reading books and writing stuff down. And that's not in a structured curriculum or a structured.
Yeah.
Did I do well in that environment? I think I did went to a college in the University of Michigan that I think did a really good job of getting me excited about learning. I don't think I was as excited about learning in high school. I was much more excited about hanging out with my friends and playing sports. But I think Michigan did a good job of getting me excited about learning, and so I benefited greatly from that. But um, if people can get there on their own, I mean, we have access to
Yeah.
so much. Like we have access to more information than any generation ever. Um, and so I don't think that it's fully necessary. I do think what's necessary is the love of learning and the motor to go out and learn new things and some things that you can't learn at all. I mean, a lot of things you can't learn at all in the classroom, but like learning how to deal with failure or
Mhm.
adversity, which I think is really really important, particularly in entrepreneurship. I mean, that's what you're signing up for. You're
Yeah.
basically signing up to just get your face pushed in the mud every day and have to figure stuff out. And so the more you can get used to dealing with that well and humbly, I think that's what's really important.
Yeah.
So I think not for everyone
Yeah.
helped me out, but I don't see it as like a requirement for
No, for
working
sure.
here.
Because you
That-
yeah. Well, I always think of it because, like, a lot of, growing up, I'm a '95 baby, so I was always told, at least going, through middle school and high school, hey, you need to think about your career, you need to think about college. What college are you going to? If you're not going to college, like, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Most jobs need a bachelor's degree in something. Um, and I just never was that kid. And so, a lot of founders, when I find out that they went to college, I'm always curious to see, was it college because they went to college because everyone's like, hey, you need to go and figure something out and kind of go with it? Or was it like, actually, do you survive and like thrive in an environment where I think you kind of phrased it better than I probably would have, because I had made it 3 months through college and dropped out immediately. So but like, when a company, or not company, but a college or university can get you excited about learning, I think for me, the reason why I've been able to continue like podcasting and doing all these things is because I get excited about the growth and like learning new things along the way that get me amped up. So, if a college can do that for you, then obviously like that's a good environment. I think
yeah.
better than, yeah, better than a structured, go to class, go do your homework, take a test.
It's heavily reliant on on really the teachers. Like when it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if it's high school or college. Like I became really interested in economics in college because I had a really good 101 professor.
Mm.
One of my very good friends had a different professor and had a horrible experience and just like couldn't get into it. And I'm like, wow, that's ridiculous. That's crazy to me. That like
Yeah.
I don't think me and this person are very different. It's just like it's crazy. Like it's not the school. Um, it's really the teachers, and there's so many good teachers on YouTube now. Like you can take all these great classes, and teachers also don't need to be structured teachers. They could be mentors or just like reading Shoe Dog, like Phil
Yeah.
Knight. I'm like taking notes, like he's an entrepreneurial teacher in that book. So I think that part is important, like going to
Mhm.
people who have great experience and learning from them. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of elements of structured learning that don't work, and honestly are like detrimental, like where you really teach people the color between the in between the lines, and they don't realize that the world isn't like that, that like you
Yeah,
can influence things in different ways. So
100%. And you also said earlier too, I think the part where school I think is great because like I don't think I don't know. I always get caught up in the people are like, oh, go to college, don't go to college. You don't need to do it. We have access to everything, right? Like, yes, you do, but I think depending on who you are and how you're wired, that's where it gets really down to like, okay, you need to be able to make a choice. But the biggest thing I've been able to see through like friends and just like younger, generations that I've gotten to know through family or whatever is that self-awareness is really like starting to develop right then and there. I think college helps kind of break out of that shell. In high school, no matter what, I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's so clicky. You're a jock, you're a band geek, you're a theater kid, you're a whatever you get kind of placed in. That's becoming super self-identifying for you at that age. So then where now self-awareness, I didn't really become like I would say fully self-aware until I like got to 21, 22. Not fully self-aware, like I'm unlocking like the universe in my
yeah,
head,
yeah,
but like started to become self-aware, like, holy shit, I'm doing things that like family wanted me to do that I have actually have had never had a desire to do, but for some reason just got thrown into or whatever like that case may be. Um, so yeah, I think that time specifically, like high school going to college, you get so much exposure to diversity and to adversity and to yeah, all the other stuff that really make you think for yourself rather than just I'm doing it because my parents wanted me to go to this college or I'm doing it because everyone else is here and I need to follow my friends or whatever it may be. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, the cerebral cortex, the outermost part of your brain, it's in development until you're like 25, 26. You might have just you're 26. You might have just hit like when your
20,
brain
27, 27.
yeah. You're still it doesn't mean you can't
Yeah,
learn
yeah,
new things. You can learn new things forever.
yeah,
But really like developing like and growing the way you do when you're a child,
mm,
that sort of slows down at 26. And so
mm,
that's like, we say 18 people are adults, and they are. I mean, at that, but your brain's developed enough at that point to make your own decisions. But really, like the skills, the things that you learn before 26 are the stickiest. So if you get
mm,
really good at sales before you're 25, or learning a language, that's like the most, that's the example people keep going to.
yeah,
Um, and so a lot of those years are when a lot of people um, go to college. But man, we could do a whole pod. I'm so passionate
seriously.
about education, and like so like things that are wrong with it. It's so freaking
Mm,
expensive, and it's not a good, like, it's so important to our just country overall. Like education levels are one of the largest um indicators of like economic power, and
mm,
obviously leads to like technological innovation and stuff like that. And so I'm a big believer in just accessibility of education, and I don't like the idea of having like really good professors in this one little room where they can talk to 200 people. I'm like, open them up, let
yeah,
everyone learn, like make it accessible to everyone, and then the people who can get the most out of it, And so, yeah, we'll save that. Maybe
yeah.
we'll save that for another.
Yeah, I was
another.
gonna say we'll definitely have to do like a part two, like behind the scenes glimpse of like just a rant on because I agree. I think at the end of the day, if you have 200 people in a room with all the best professors, guess what? If you exposed it to the world for free or even for just $10 or whatever, like a
Yeah.
super low amount, guess what? Most people still won't even act on that. So the fact that like it's gonna be what the person takes away from it and how they apply it rather than like closing it off. Because if you make it harder to get, guess what? It's even gonna be less of a initiation to actually engage with that type of content anyways.
Yeah,
So
people don't
yeah.
people I used to be intimidated by the fact that all this information is out there and like accessible to everyone. I'm like, shoot, like everyone has this, how do we? And then like as I got older, I sort of realized that like not everyone, just because there's more information out there doesn't mean we all get smarter.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just taking the time to go in and really learn. I mean, in early on in Minoan, I got in touch with a professor at the University of Wisconsin, Joanne Peck, who studies haptics, basically, and proprioception, basically the study of touch. Because one of my hypotheses was that I feel like when you can get someone to touch and use a product in retail, I think that conversion goes up. I think that willingness to pay goes up. I think that it becomes much more powerful. And I was like, well, I don't actually know this. I need to go and find somebody who knows this. And so I did a bunch,
Mm.
ResearchGate is a site you can just look up articles. And so I found this professor, Joanne Peck, who studied this stuff, who studied all these studies where you put a coffee mug, in front of someone, and then half the people can actually touch it and use it, half the people can't, and you sort of study what they're willing to pay, how much they remember it, anyways, super interesting. I reached out to her. She was like, wow, no one reaches out to me. No one's like, no one's interested in what I'm doing. Like, I have students who pay to come here who aren't even this interested. We built a really good relationship. She ended up sending me a PDF of her textbook, which I
Wow.
read. I read cover to cover. I didn't even read textbooks in college. I didn't read them in high school, but I read this thing cover to cover. And I think one of the things I wish, I'm still young and early in my career, but one of the regrets I have is I wish my passion for learning had bloomed a little bit earlier,
Mm,
because that's the real power. And it goes
for
back to
sure.
what we were talking about. Like those are the people who are going to go out and get this information and internalize it and think critically and use that to then build better strategies and build good businesses. Um,
Yeah.
that's what it all comes down to.
This episode is brought to you by my friends at Hostfully, and if you're a property manager anywhere in the country, then you definitely need to look at joining Hostfully for their property management software or their digital guidebooks, because we all know that streamlining your operations as a property management company or a host can be super difficult and time consuming, and this is the tool that helps you take care of that and earn back time from your day and to actually have a life. So if you haven't already, go to hostfully.com, use my code SlickTalk20, and make sure that you have that ready to go, because it will be a game changer for you. So go ahead, go to the link in the show notes, hostfully.com, use code SlickTalk20, and enjoy having some time back in your life. And now back to the episode. That's super fascinating. And I want to get, like, we're going to tie this all in together, but for everyone listening, we've kind of covered, jet.com, getting into Walmart e-commerce, and kind of this idea, right? Like, you had this idea for months, you're writing ideas in the notes, you can't sleep. What is Minoan for anyone who were to go to the website today? Because I'm going to use what you're saying now to tie back into some more really good
Yeah.
questions. So
So,
yeah.
so we call ourselves a native retail platform, which is about building real world shoppable experiences. And basically, what we built is a platform where hosts can come and purchase products from 200 name brands at very steep discounts, all in one portal where you can see like everything in one place. So stuff from Crate and Barrel, stuff from Public Goods, stuff from Wayfair, stuff from Article. It's all in one place. You can see the budget, when it's going to ship, consolidated, and then check out and save a bunch of money and basically just track everything in one place. And then what we do is we take those products you've purchased, we pipe them into a shoppable experience. Like, it's almost like think of like a Shopify store that's custom built for your listing or property.
Mhm.
And we build these nice little powder coated like note cards that'll sit at the property for the guests that say, hey, found something you like or want to learn more, scan here, and we let them buy the products on. Or if they're loving the mattress they've been sleeping on, if they're loving the coffee maker, they're loving the coffee beans, they can buy it through Minoan. And so it's almost like B2B to C, getting these products into these hospitality environments where they're creating really meaningful moments, and then using those moments to then create moments of inspiration with guests where they can buy products that they really loved using during their stay.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, I think, especially for the listeners that have been listening to the last few episodes that we've had, I think a big topic that we've been seeing within hospitality as a whole, not just short-term rentals, but short-term rentals obviously is really applicable to this, is that we are no longer as an industry looking for to fill up our calendars. We don't need that. That's not the
Yeah.
issue. It's not getting nights booked. It's getting inventory and then it's making extra revenue outside of the nightly rate. And so like we had the founder of Oki, which is a European based hotel upsell platform. And then, now we've had, we were at High Tech in Orlando where we're working with Utip. So Utip, is a contactless, appless tipping platform, helps increase KPIs and ROI for your properties, plus your retention on employment. So I think it's a very much needed thing, right? Like if you're in a home or a vacation rental or even a hotel room, we've seen Hilton do it. They come up with
Yeah.
their own mattresses, and guess what? You can now buy a Hilton mattress, bring it home with you, stuff like that. Like you get to experience it. So for you guys, when it comes to the shoppable experience, can you really describe maybe a little bit more in depth? I know you already covered, the experience moment making aspect, but what does shoppable mean when it comes to, having that experience, right? Like what is shoppable when it comes to a fragmented industry that's so spread out with so many different properties and so many different, everything else?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think shoppable is a word because every time I put it in an email, like, it gets
Yeah.
underlined in red, so it is a a good question, but, um, for us, it comes back to this theme of, like, the best product experiences. If we're talking about retail,
Yeah.
99% of retail happens on screens in e-commerce or on shelves in brick and mortar stores. That's not where the best product experiences happen. The best product experiences happen in moments of use. And so we talk about shoppable stays. We mean when someone's coming and staying at your property, they're having these incredibly rich interactions with all these different types of products, electronics, smart thermostats, smart locks, lighting fixtures, furniture, snacks, fitness equipment, maybe even soap, shampoos. And there are moments of inspiration that occur there. Like people will be like, wow, this is a really nice soap or shampoo. And like, yeah, you can use it in the shower. You can't do that in e-commerce. You can't like actually see what does the shampoo smell like? How does it lather?
Mm.
You can't do it in a CVS. There's no shower head that you can like kind of
Yeah.
sneak under. Like, yeah, I like this one. That's true for every single product. Like it's better to sleep on a mattress for 3 or 4 nights and see how you feel when you wake up than to swipe through pictures on a website or go to a mattress firm and lie on one fully clothed for like 20 seconds with a
Yeah.
salesperson sitting over you like, what do you think, you like that one? Like
Yeah.
that's not the right way to do it. And I think that's true of any product that exists in the physical. Better to sit on furniture and then to look at pictures of it. It's better to listen to music that you like on
Mhm.
a speaker in a space. That's way better than going to Best Buy where they have one song queued up that's like perfectly tuned and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
this sounds good. Like, we're getting catfished in retail a whole lot. Um, and so that's what we mean by shoppable is these like real moments. You can really see if you like something. And if you like it, we make it really easy for you to buy it. And if you don't like it, no sweat off our back. We're not in your face. We're not NASCARing the space. There's not price tags hanging over. It's just a very tasteful, sort of simple guide that if you scan it, it opens up this world where you can look around and be like, oh, that's what that TV. Oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's what that smell is. I love that candle. It's
Mm.
bringing those moments live. And that's what we mean when we say shoppable or native experiences. We think that's the best way to do it in
Yeah.
retail. And we also just think that that means that these hosts and GMs who are creating those moments are sitting on a lot of value. It's
Mm.
incredibly valuable. And I just don't think the hosts are getting credit for how much value they create there. And that's why we built Minoan, so they could save money up front and make money on the tail end. Because if you look at what those moments are worth, right? Someone's coming and sleeping on a mattress for 3 or 4 nights in a row, like a CPC on Google for a mattress, CPC cost per click, could be like $7. So if a click, if like boop, If that's worth $7,
Mhm.
what is it worth to these brands to have someone come in and sleep on their mattress for 3 or 4 nights? A hell of a lot more than that.
Mhm.
And that's sort of the power and the value that we want to help these hosts and these hospitality professionals unlock. Um, because we already know brands are willing to pay for this. They're just not paying hosts right now. The reason why they're not paying hosts is because the technology and the infrastructure of tracking this and quantifying it has not existed. And that's what
Yeah.
we're building.
That's I was just writing down, I think the intentionality, right? When we're first thing I was taught through Marriott, right, is to anticipate the guest needs.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I've been seeing through this pattern of in-stay revenue, which can turn even to post-stay revenue, which can also turn into direct bookings, repeat guests, all this stuff through something as simple as really enjoying the mattress that they can't have at home, but yet they knew that when I was at that cabin in the woods with my fiance for the weekend, I got the best sleep I've ever had. Maybe, yeah, there was less cars and noise outside, but I slept
Yeah.
really great on that mattress. And if I just knew the link, maybe I could continue that at home, which then next time I want to go on vacation, gonna put that property in my top 10 or top 5 depending on the destination or field, but, like, that's such a long thread of moments and butterfly effects that happen, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's yeah, so the intentionality behind it, I think, just overall, like, I don't know. If you just put one QR code, like, I like that you said you're not gonna do tags everywhere, right? You're not gonna be,
Yeah.
walking into, like, an IKEA, right, where you're walking through every section and setting and
Yeah.
all this other stuff, but I think, just having it there, anticipating the need of, I might really enjoy the shampoo because I've been struggling with a itchy, dry scalp or whatever the situation may be, and I didn't have that here on this vacation or on this business trip. I really enjoyed that coffee maker and made my coffee faster than my coffee pot at home. I need something like this because I work remote, I travel, whatever. All this stuff really goes in. So I think just that alone, like you said, is the biggest value add you could probably do with little to no thought. Once, because I know hosts, like we met a lot of these hosts at the STR Wealth Conference, right? Like
Yeah.
they are so intentional with their properties. They're 1, 2, maybe up to 10 properties, but every single one gets the most highest level of attention to detail I've seen in a long time. And so to easily have that attention to detail carried over into something so simple, so easy that they don't have to continue to sell and do, like, they can embed it in messaging, they can have a little, QR code there. Sorry, I know I'm selling really hard, but, like, you just
I'm
kinda
picking
sparked
it up.
a
Yeah. I
I was
mean,
gonna say, you just sparked the thought of, this is why we love hospitality, right? It's moments, it's yeah,
I think that I think a few things. One, I think that these hosts, there's different types of hosts. There's different
yeah,
strategies, and this is in like Choice has a very different strategy than Marriott.
mhm,
Same thing is reflected in the short-term rental. There are hosts who are like heads in beds. That's
yeah,
it. And then there are hosts who really are creating euphoric experiences.
mhm,
Um, And I think the people that are doing that, like, they're four-walled influencers,
mm, I
and
like
I
that.
just don't think they're being treated that way. Um, and I think brands know that. When we talk to brands, they're like, "We would love to be in these spaces," but they're like, "How?" They're like,
Yeah,
"We don't have a systematic way of doing this. Like, it's a super fragmented market. How do we go out and validate? How do we?" So we're like, "Well, we do all that." And that's why we have an
mhm,
application process. We talk to hosts, and we're inspired. I mean, we're inspired by properties all the time. We're like, wow, this is incredible. And the other thing I'll say is, like, hospitality is an industry. We're very familiar with the experience economy.
mhm,
That's like our bread and butter. That's where we make money. I think there's another potentially even larger economy that these folks should be getting a piece of, and that's the attention economy.
mm,
And the attention economy is monopolized right now by Facebook and Google. I mean, that's what they're doing. They are markets for attention, quite simply. They get your attention and they serve you. It's kind of like, they serve you a brand that is paying for it. So, and that's big. I mean, go, go those are publicly traded companies. Go look,
yeah,
go look how much how many billions they are printing every quarter in profit.
Yeah.
Again, being hosts know that. That's after you pay everyone else, just in pure profit. So, and again, it goes back to the click thing. I think that the moments of attention that hosts provide are more valuable. And I think it's more natural. It doesn't need to be pop up, boom, in your face. It's like,
Yeah.
we have a tea kettle here. If you make tea, use it. If you don't make tea, you don't have to use it. We don't need to be like, boom, try the tea kettle. It's like
Yeah.
everything there is there for utilization. It's just like it perfectly meshes in. And so when you talk to brands and the types of moments they want to create, it aligns very much with the hospitality space. And when you look at what these professionals are already doing, it's like all that it's already there. It's just
Yeah.
not being reflected. It's not being priced in yet to what hosts are paying and what they're getting back from these brands. And that's what we're trying to fix.
100%. And I want to bring up a quote from a earlier episode with Evan Dalgo, who's with Jarvis ML. Um, he said in his episode, he comes from a heavy real estate but e-commerce background, and he
Yeah.
said short-term rentals or hospitality is not we're not in the hospitality industry. We're not in the real estate industry. We are in an e-commerce industry. If you look at Airbnb and how they built their
Yeah.
platform and all this other stuff. So for you guys at Minoan, when it comes to, e-commerce compared to short-term rentals, do you guys see the same similarity when it comes to, obviously you do within the home. I love the four-wall influencer, market, but for a guest, do they see travel, right? When I see TikToks and Instagram reels and all this stuff, right? People are I'm traveling, I'm staying at this Airbnb. Granted, I know there's a lot of people that hate that term of being called an Airbnb, but let's
Yeah.
just say from the traveler, the consumer's perspective, right? They see it as travel, but I know these tech companies like Airbnb see it as e-commerce, right? They're heavily focusing on pictures right now. They're not focusing on titles and descriptions anymore like they used to. They're making it click, click, booked. Literally 2 clicks, you're done. Instead of when you go to a direct booking website, it's fill in your name, fill in your last name, your address, your credit card, your email, any people you're traveling with. I agree to the terms and conditions of this booking, blah, blah, blah. Like that's already 10 clicks before getting to the actual pay now button or book
Yeah.
reservation. So what are you guys seeing when it comes to e-commerce comparatively to short-term rentals?
I think it's very similar. There's a lot of unique things in hospitality that you can only learn from working in the space. When we talk to GMs and hosts who've been doing this for a while, there's a lot of like sort of in knowledge that you build up from experience. But if you look
Yeah.
at like, let's just do a direct comparison. Like, what makes your product successful on Amazon? How they're merchandised, the images, the reviews from your peers, and then your post-purchase experience, basically, which feeds back into the reviews.
Mhm.
What about on these OTAs on these sites? You're selling images,
Mhm.
and the reviews are how people learn about, and ultimately it doesn't matter if someone bought something on Amazon and if they bought a candle and they're like, this thing sucks, I hate it, and they didn't write a negative review, it doesn't impact the sales. Same thing's true on the OTA. You could have a guest
Yeah.
that has a horrible time for one reason, or maybe they're just not good guests. If they don't leave a
Yeah.
negative review, like it doesn't, so there are lots and lots of parallels. And the thing you said also about just friction and reducing clicks, there's a great book called The Effortless Experience, which is all about
Yeah.
customer service, and really interesting. This Matt Dixon, who I used to work with at CB when I was a lowly salesperson, lowly sales rep. I was not even like like the cold caller.
Yeah.
Um, the big takeaway from that book is you get a lot more benefit from just being easy to use than like over the top service.
Mhm.
Like the benefit of over the top service is there, but the benefit of just being easy and frictionless is significant. And so that's why it's called the effortless experience. It's like instead of focusing
Yeah.
your customer service org on like surprise and delight, or I forget what that is, like,
Yeah.
you know, you should just be focusing on making things really, really easy. Because when we do customer service surveys and they see this across all these companies, that's what people really care about. That's why Amazon patented one-click checkout. Like back then, People are like, what? That's such a weird thing to pat, one-click checkout. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because the difference between one-click checkout and two-click checkout or three is significant. People drop
Yeah.
off. And I think the same thing is also true in these sort of, I think the nice thing about the short-term rental space, actually all of hospitality, we are all generally users as well. We're hosts, but we
Mhm.
stay with other hosts. We're GMs, but we stay at other hotels. And so we can see it from both sides. I mean, when things are just easy and frictionless, that's sort of like the key. When things are not
Yeah.
easy, when something's challenging, even if people are going above and beyond, it still is just like, oh, okay. And we're spoiled, unfortunately. But yeah, I could go on, but I think that there are a lot of parallels between e-commerce and hospitality. And a lot of it is just that like we're moving towards more digital world. And so how do you
Mhm.
represent products digitally? Right now, you really just do that through images and video and descriptions and reviews. And so that becomes really, really important no matter what you're selling.
100%. And I don't think my roommates listen to the podcast, but if they did listen to this episode, they would make fun of me because comparatively, I am the guy that goes for convenience over, price or service, right? Like
Yeah.
if I'm in New York and it's easier for me to call an Uber than it is to wave down a taxi, even if the taxi is cheaper, I will call an Uber. I will do it.
Yeah.
I'll 100%. I don't care. I want easy.
Yeah.
And so I'm all about convenience versus price, anything. And I think, coming back to the statement earlier, we're in the attention economy. This is something like even we struggled with as podcasters in our network. Like the question I get asked is like, how long is too long of an episode? Like I'm like, I don't know. I have episodes that go in like hour 30 minutes and people still listen. So
Yeah.
obviously the attention's there. But then we have a podcast that's 10 minutes long at most, and it's obviously still thriving great too because people can get easily give up 10 minutes of their time.
Yeah.
And so I think when it comes to even e-commerce, right? Like I'm a Amazon Prime member, so I know that when I see the buy now button and it'll be there tomorrow, all I do is this swipe and it's
Yeah.
done. I don't
It
have to
keeps
like,
getting easier. It's
yeah,
crazy. It's like it really keeps getting easier and easier. And that's the secret. I mean, that's what these best companies know. That's why they spend so much time on making it 0.1% easier, because that's
mhm,
what wins. And we spend a lot of time, on our business when we're talking about hosts. It's like,
yeah. I was just gonna
how do
ask,
we
like,
make
what do
this
you guys?
easy? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
things
was
that
gonna
are
say,
not easy is when people are when you're furnishing, like if you're furnishing a 2-bedroom rental from scratch, you need to buy like 175 items or something like that. It's
yeah,
crazy. All the plates, everything for the kitchen, everything for the bathrooms, all the decor. The way people are doing that currently is, if they're organized, they're doing it in a Google sheet and putting links in and putting in the price, and that's how they're tracking sort of budget. Um, what they're not having an easy time tracking is like ship dates,
yeah,
especially if you're ordering across 20 different brands. Like if you're getting 170 items, you're likely getting them from a bunch of different places. And so then
mhm,
it's like, okay, well, when will this get delivered? When will this get delivered? And how much does it? Okay, so add this cost to that cost. And then, okay, now tracking. Oh, tracking.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
How's tracking done? They're going to send me a tracking link. Okay, so now I have to track emails from 20 different suppliers and all the tracking. And so that's why we really focus Minoan on just like, there's technology. You can build technology to make this stuff easier.
yeah,
There are ways to integrate with the carriers and drive automated updates on tracking. That's what a lot of these retailers do. There are ways to bring in shipping and discount pricing information all in one place, even if it's 20 different brands. And so we're really, really focused, really relentlessly focused on ease of use and value. So make
mhm,
it as easy as possible to do this stuff. Hosts, GMs, they got a lot going on, a
mhm,
lot going on. How do we make the ordering of products as easy as possible? Like set it and forget it. And then the
yeah,
second one is value. We really believe that the moments that happen between people and products in these spaces are incredibly valuable. And so
mhm,
if we believe that, that means that brands shouldn't just view hosts or hotels as customers for them to make money off of. They should view them as marketing partners to help them reach more potential customers. Those two things have a very different economic relationship. And so how
Yes.
do we go and beat this drum with brands and say, hey, you need to, and they're like, but our margins. And I'm like, I know, you're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to make a lot of money getting into the hotel, or the property, but you're going to get all these people coming in and using your product. And then we'll sell it there at full retail. So you make more money there. And so, ease of use and value. It's like what we're really trying to obsessively focus on. And we get really good feedback from hosts that use us around both of those things, but we're very ambitious and we want to make it even easier. I mean, when, obviously we talk to a lot of hosts, you talk to a lot of hosts. When you get the hosts that get beyond a certain number of properties, the thing you hear about over and over again is systems, the importance of having a system. You need to have a system for cleaning. You need to have a system for acquiring and evaluating properties. You need to have a system for pricing. These things that work in a 1, 2 property, 3 property, they do not work when you get to 10, 15, 50. You need these machines where things happen and you maintain the system and the system grows. You also need a system for maintaining what you order and the inventory you hold in these properties, the ordering process. And that's where I feel like we've seen a lot of gaps with really good hosts. I mean, prolific, institutionally backed short-term rental companies with tons of money in the bank. And they still don't have a good system just for ordering stuff. It'll be like, oh, we have 5 people whose full-time job is to add items from a cart to Amazon and ship them to a property.
Seriously.
Full time. That's what they do. Full time.
Yeah.
Wow. Why? Like, technology has been built to solve these problems. No one's just done it. I don't know why. No one's decided to do this in hospitality. And so, yeah, that's what we really want to. I mean, the amount of time people waste on manual tasks that could and should be automated
Yep.
is pretty mind-boggling. To see how far like consumer retail has gone, like with Amazon. I mean, it's like you're talking about the swipe, and then to see how
Yeah.
far behind like B2B retail is. And like I think there's a stat that 50% of B2B suppliers and brands don't even have a transactional website. Like you can't even, it's just crazy. So there's a lot. There's a lot
Yeah.
for us to solve, but right now it's like make it easy, offer good value. Make it really easy, offer good value, and then we can build on from there.
For sure. And the way I kind of look at it is like getting into the industry as when I was a front desk agent, I always asked the question was like, why are we doing all these checklists? Like why can't the property management software do this for us? Then my managers would give me some excuse. This is how it's done. The software is how it is, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. And then that was the similar. And I thought it was just maybe the hotel, right? I was like, okay, it's a big property. We have to, do all this stuff manually to check our, cross our T's, dot our I's. And then I go to another property, and then I go to a restaurant, and then I go to another property, and then I started becoming a manager and still seeing the same stuff on accounting and revenue management. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, we like the way I've looked at it is that hospitality, especially on the B2B side, is the redheaded stepchild that doesn't, I would say, has not had any big innovation in tech until Airbnb came along. That's
Yeah.
and that like some of my listeners may hate that statement, but I think we have not been innovators or the emerging industry for any real technology comparatively to Amazon's and the other companies outside of our industry.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, love it or hate it. Like the
Yeah.
industry has been around for a long time. I mean, we did a conference, a local conference in Vermont we like to get involved in like the state associations and work with them. And
Yeah.
so, it's like, yeah, some of these hosts, it's like, they're like, yeah, we've been a host for 50 years. It's like, they were hosts before Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were
Was
like born,
yeah.
right? So they
Yeah.
didn't invent the category, but they did
No.
bring a frictionless aggregated experience to the industry.
Mhm.
And clearly that's what consumers want. I mean, they're
Yeah.
voting with their wallets. That's what they
Yeah.
want. And obviously, there's Verbo and HomeAway, that like they're not the only ones, but
Yeah.
clearly they have the biggest consumer audience, which just means they've built something that consumers really value. And I
Well,
think it's
and
a very valid statement you made.
yeah, well, I was gonna say no again, no digs to Verbo or HomeAway or any of those other companies that were before Airbnb, but they just did it right. I'm sorry, like Verbo was not the easiest to use. It was very, again, still one of those things like it was really the only platform, right? So it was like, okay, we have to get on because this is where travelers are. But then Airbnb comes along and it's so simple and so searchable. I think, that's a whole nother topic. Again, you and I would probably go on a rant on is the searchability. I think, Google, like everyone used to go to Google and what is blank? How do I blank? Right? Very big, broad statement or searches.
Yeah.
Now I would even put money on that it's becoming more and more micro. Searches are becoming more and more detail oriented. So that way now when we're searching for things, you're getting less and less search results because of the detail put into the search. Um, this is just like from us having like 2,600 episodes on our HFN website, I'm realizing through like search activities, not just like people typing in housekeeping or typing in technology or typing in certain bigger, broader statements. They're really going to the micro status of, how do I prevent my housekeeping turnover? Literally, that would be a search statement. Getting
Yeah.
so micro comparatively. So I think it's very interesting to see, you know, the e-commerce place of Airbnb to shoppable experiences that are not only virtual and digital but in real life. Like this chair could be at an Airbnb property and I could easily scan it from a no-end store and go home with it. Not go home with it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
um
maybe one day.
so
Well, we try to
yeah.
ship it to you to make it again,
Yeah.
making it easier. If you want to leave with it in your truck, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my whole rant on just I think the way that consumers consume is going to is yeah, like the way you guys see it too. They're voting with their wallet. But I also say like they're getting more and more micro oriented, right? Like people know what they want now. I think stuff has been around long enough that we don't need the broader not I can't say don't need. We don't need as much of the broader search. It's much more in the micro faucet, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. I mean, to think about like going from looking things up in encyclopedias and
Yeah, true.
like that was, back then it was like, wow, the whole world's at
Yeah.
your fingertips. I mean, people would sell those things door to door. Uh,
Seriously. I remember
like,
my parents when I was in like, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade being like, "You need to carry a dictionary with you because this is
yeah,
like the most important book in the world based on knowledge and accessibility and like all this stuff." And I was like, "I hate the dictionary."
yeah,
I got so I got so mad whenever they told me that. I was like, stop. Stop pushing the
yeah.
dictionary on me." But yeah.
It's like go from that, and then now it's because that was like one organization basically saying, "Here's everything you need to know." But now with like, Google just it's like it's the front page of the internet, and so
Yeah.
as yeah, you can find very, very, very specific things and answers, and I think that's that they're just changing behavior where
Yeah.
we expect to be able to get answers for very nuanced, micro, as you would say, searches or questions.
Yeah. Well, another kind of like one of the closing questions I wanted to ask you that I wrote down earlier is just more or less from your experience going from, starting off in the startup life with Jet being one of the top or not the top, one of the first 50 people there, then seeing how fast that company grew, 80 million a month, that's freaking nuts. To then, getting to the execution of Minoan to now the stage that you guys are at, what has been the biggest learning takeaway implementation for you personally as a founder that you may not have known or realized prior to you getting into this industry or into this career path that you've chosen?
Yeah, I think another, I guess, part of my career that I did mention that it's important in this question is I did start my own business while I was in that sales job called Tail Your, which is basically like virtual tailoring. So I had this
Mm,
experience where my dad was getting married. I didn't like have any button downs. I never wore button downs. I had to get one. It was like a
yeah,
smock, and I had to get it tailored, and it was like $80. I was like, $80. The shirt was like $30. I'm paying you $80
yeah,
to tailor it, and then it was like I feel like more people would get stuff tailored if it was cheaper, and so built this experience. where you could do that. And it was freaking hard, man. That was like my first run in with the entrepreneurial buzzsaw. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you just start a company. And then it's like, wow, everything's hard. Everything, every part of it.
Everything.
Stuff you
Yeah.
already knew was going to be hard is hard. And then the stuff you didn't even think about is hard. And there's so much. And so that was important because the perspective I went into Jet with was like, how do you do this? Because
Seriously.
I tried to do it and ended up flat on my ass, basically. So like, how do you do it? And man, it's just like, it's about having a really clear vision and hiring really good people and making them clear on the vision and having a
Mm,
system for them to operate. So values, this is how we make decisions, and just let them go. Just let them go. Hire good people. And Mark Laurie would say this all the time: hire good people and then trust them so much that they
mm,
could burn you, but they choose not to, you know?
mm.
Um, and weird, I mean, at Minoan, it's like all my employees have access to the bank account. Like they're paying, we're paying hosts, we're paying people. Like someone could definitely clear that thing out and, run to Canada or Mexico. We brought on like actual accountants who were like, you cannot do this. So probably less so
Mm,
now. But I mean, there's lots of situations where in Minoan, it's like, we just trust people. We're very transparent. Um, we just shared out sort of like pay scales. So it's like, hey, if you're at this level, this is how much you make. This is how much equity you get. If you're at this
mm.
level, this is how much you make. There's no negotiation. When you look around, the person at your level, they didn't negotiate something higher. Like it's transparent. When you get promoted, you know exactly what you move into. You know exactly how the
Yeah.
equity changes. And so I think the transparency, the trust. I mean, these are actually the values of Jet: trust, transparency, and fairness, which
Mm.
are great. And I think one of the hardest things about, like, there's no new information. There's no, like, when you start a company, it's not like, oh, this is what makes it work. No one ever talks about this. It's all the same stuff. It's not going to be any information that you haven't heard before. Hire good people. Yeah, we've all heard that. You
Yeah.
know, have a clear vision, maintain focus. We've all heard that. Like,
Systems.
have systems. We've all heard
Yeah.
that. It's just the wisdom of having context. It's like, yeah, I know, hire good people. But then when you actually do it, you're like, oh man, you got to hire good people. It's like, I get it now. I thought I understood it, but now I really understand it because I have the context and experience. And so I don't think there are any secret silver bullets. There's no information that I could share out that aren't
Yeah.
already tons of blogs and stuff. But what I will say I learned at Jet is like, you got to be bold and you got to be fearless and you got to kind of just like hold hands to the people with your left and your right and just march forward through whatever. And sometimes it doesn't work,
Mhm.
and that's okay. Like sometimes these companies don't work. That's fine. Um, good ideas fail, good founders fail, good founders with good ideas still fail. But
Mhm.
um, if you don't give up and you just keep moving and keep moving, your chances of success are actually pretty high. um, and so I think the biggest thing is just like really like getting missionaries and not mercenaries and
Mm.
aligning people, building trust, being transparent, setting a vision, letting your vision be openly debated and discussed, letting someone say, I actually don't agree with that. Okay, let's talk about it
Mm.
because maybe you're right and we can change it. But I've thought about this a lot. I have, 100 pages in a notepad that was next to my bed that say this is the way to do it. And so if you can poke holes in it, then fine. But I've spent a lot of time and I'm ready to defend it in front of the
Yeah.
company. And so I think all that stuff is what I've learned so far. But I'm still, I mean, we were talking about education and self
Mm.
discovery. Like I'm still learning a lot about myself and what works. And so, we could have this conversation again in a couple of years and I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
you'll get a different answer. That's just how wisdom works. You see the same information, but you see it in a different way. That's why sometimes you read a book when you're younger, you read it again 10 years later and you're like, wow, I did not read it that way. I did not read
Yeah.
it that way first time around. Book hasn't changed, but your perspective has changed. And so I think that's true of everything.
100%. I was gonna say I love that question because of the context behind the answer. That you said it perfectly. There's no secret behind what makes a successful company or founder. It's you hear the same things over and over again, but really the context of like, again, you said it perfectly. Hire good people. Yeah, everyone's heard it, but I also like just like you. I didn't experience that until I hired Claire and Michael on my team. It was like,
Yeah.
holy crap! Like this is what it's like to have good people. I'm not putting out fires every 5 minutes because you guys are literally running with the passion and mission of like what the trust aspect, right? Like trust them enough to like, they could rob me if they wanted to,
Yeah.
but they don't. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I think that's like incredibly important because I've never had that. As an employee myself, I never had a boss trust me enough to run with things. Every time I tried to run with something, I was shut down. It was like, hey, no, we can't do that. Why would you give this guest a $25 discount or whatever the things may be, right? And so to like learn it oppositely, if that's even a word.
Yeah.
To learn
I'll
the
have to check the
okay,
dictionary.
perfect. I was like shoppable and oppositely are going to be the words of this this podcast. But to have that opposite experience, I think again it just goes to show that the context behind the lessons spoken is really the lesson learned, right? Like I don't,
Yeah.
again, you can't like the top 5 lessons of entrepreneurship, hire good people, do this, do that, blah blah blah. Great. They're out there for free. You can look it up on, like you said, all these blogs, all these things. But until that context is applied, then I think that's when you really learn kind of like the whole lesson behind it.
Yeah. People who are looking for the silver bullet, I'm sorry to disappoint. There's not going to be one,
Yeah.
but reading those things and learning those things, then when you experience it, you're like, oh, okay, it really sticks.
It's like
Whereas
that
because
click.
doing that, yeah, yeah. How do you know that?
The
You do
what?
this?
The the light
Yeah,
bulb.
yeah. Oh, the light
Yeah.
bulb. Sorry, this means
Yeah.
understand in sign language, and I thought you were
I
just dropping
also
something
well,
on me.
say I also do sign. So yeah,
Oh,
that
okay.
yeah, but that for me is always like oh shoot. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm deaf. So for all the podcast listeners, actually, I've never said this publicly on the show. I'm actually deaf in my left ear and I took ASL in high school. So I actually practice sign a lot. And so understand, yeah. It's very
Dude, you want to know something else? My mom and my sister are deaf, so I grew up signing.
whoa.
So I also
Whoa.
I'll do the next one in sign language.
That I was gonna say my sign is gonna need more practice.
Oh,
A
that's
lot
pretty
more
good.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I was yeah. Anyways, it's a whole nother another episode, but I was way better back in high school when I actually practiced it on a daily, but yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's still sticking. Yeah,
oh yeah,
we should my
that'd be
fiance is
interesting.
learning now, so
That'd be really interesting to do a podcast in all sign. Anyways, I'm gonna think about that one for a
yeah.
future. Well, sweet. I know we got distracted here at this last portion, but Mark, I really have enjoyed the conversation, and I just think for anyone listening, short-term rentals, hotels, restaurants, cafes, technology entrepreneurs, founders, and the whole point of this show is not to just interview founders for founders. It's really to interview founders and talk about this type of stuff for anybody. Like, right? I don't think you need to be a founder to listen to this conversation. I think everything that you said is applicable to a team member, to a stay-at-home parent, to whoever, right? Like I think just overall, this conversation has been really fun for me. So I just want to say thank you for just being open and transparent and coming on and talking about Minoan. And yeah, it's just been really cool.
Yeah, I love that you said that because the reality is the only difference the only thing that makes the founder is they're just the person who set it up. But I think in terms of mentality and the approach, like this stuff is just true of anyone. So
Yeah.
I think that's these are things that we push on our team. It's part of our culture from top to bottom. So yeah, I loved it too. That flew by. Wow. That's crazy.
It seriously did. Well, for all the Slick Talk listeners out there, if you're watching the live or if you're listening on the audio version, Check out all the links in the show notes. Make sure you like and subscribe to everything Minoan. Connect with Marc on LinkedIn or any other platform that we link into the show notes. Really appreciate everything. Again, Marc, it's just been really incredible. And for all of you listeners and subscribers, we will see you guys all again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week. As I've been growing my business and finding new ways to add to my property portfolio, I have to think about how I can anticipate the homeowner's needs, just like I do for my guests. One of the things owners always ask is, how is my property going to be protected? What happens if something gets damaged, or worse? These are valid questions and concerns, and I have an opportunity to address these concerns before they even get mentioned, all thanks to having Safely as part of my toolkit. I can ensure all stakeholders are covered during a guest stay and use this information as a way to grow my business by ensuring my property owners know they can trust that I have them covered. If you're a professional property manager, then you need to get Safely in your tool belt so you can focus on operating and growing your business. Thanks for listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, back to an episode.